Kelsey Plum will lead the Phantom to a unrivaled championship title.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your team every day. My name is Kalia Butler, the sideline reporter for the Chicago Sky, and thanks for being an everydayer and making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. As always, I am joined with Sophia Jones, the radio analyst for the Golden State Valkyries. Sophia, what should we be on the lookout for today?
Today, we're going to put on our accounting hats because we'll be breaking down some various numbers.
I love it. Crunching the numbers today. That's exactly the point. In terms of our overall roadmap, we're going to get into some more CBA talk because that March 10th deadline is coming up. Bracketology because, as I just said, it's March, so we got to see what the brackets are looking like. But starting us off, Unrivaled semifinals in Brooklyn was a hit to say the least. And Kelsey Plum is really that girl. And that is why I say she is going to lead the Phantom to a title for Unrivaled because she is looking absolutely unstoppable. She has been clutch for this team. There's a reason, she's made the first team. Whenever you need her to go get a bucket, she will absolutely do so. And she did that in the semifinals against Vinyl. She hit a 3-pointer to get the win and move on to the championship game. And she had 31 points in this game. She was 4 for 8 from 3. And it just goes to show that, because this is going to go into our other game, but we'll get there when we get there. But this just goes to show that Kelsey Plum, when she says that she has that dog mentality in her, and when she is trying to teach other young players what being a dog looks like, especially being a smaller guard in the league, she does not play around with you guys at all.
Not a centimeter, not a millimeter of space she gives anyone else, because Kelsey Plum consistently plays every single game like she has a chip on her shoulder. Like you said, just that dog mentality comes out all the time. And it came out on the biggest stage she's faced so far in Unrivaled. That will probably be false when she plays in the finals. But Kelsey Plum, she just continues to lead her team and bring them to these situations. She's an amazing guard, handles the ball so well, can score at all 3 levels. She just whenever she touches it, all eyes immediately rotate towards her. And she was going to need to have one of these performances because Phantom was without Aaliyah Boston as well. And she just completely put the team on her shoulders and led them past Vinyl, who was throwing everything they had at Phantom at the same time. This was a very close matchup.
It was, and they actually had to come back from a 16-point deficit to get the win, especially in 3v3. That's very impressive to do. But when we're talking about another exciting, close matchup, I mean, they really knew how to put the show on in Brooklyn. But when we're thinking of another player who is a guard who got a dub hitting a 3-pointer, Arike Agumbawale doing Arike things. They beat the Breeze 73-69. As I mentioned, Arike had the game winner. And, I'm telling you, it's a constant battle between, to me, Paige and Arike. And Arike got the dub in this one, 21 points. Leads the team to the championship game. But this has just been a really balanced game. But I think another standout is Breanna Stewart, obviously being able to play at home in the Barclays Center. She had 23 points. So it all just became a full circle moment at that rate.
Breanna Stewart was the face of the Unrivaled announcement to have the game in Brooklyn. Her own personal brand is Stu York. She had to show out playing in front of her hometown people. And she did exactly that. She was the leading scorer for the game, finishing with 23 points. She had 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 blocks. Those 4 blocks were huge, but she really helped to propel the Miss past the Breeze because Breeze were in control the majority of the game. And it was definitely looking like the Miss were on their heels. They might have gotten shut out, but again, Breanna Stewart, her offense and defense really helped to carry, and Enrique Umbawale put the cherry on top.
And Stewie said herself that this is my home when talking about Brooklyn and Barclays Center, obviously also from New York in general. So being a Syracuse native, then being able to play in New York, playing in Brooklyn, it's always heavily on her heart to do this. She said, once I knew that the semifinals were happening in Brooklyn, she knew that her team had to be there and she wanted to be playing in that game. And so she made that all come true. And on top of it, the cherry on top, she just said she wanted to play there, right? Cherry on top is being able to get a victory there, then going back to Miami. And I thought this was another interesting point in kind of like the big picture of looking at how successful the Unrivaled going to other cities has been and having this little tour that they have had. Philly, obviously very successful, sellout crowd. They have another sellout crowd with 18,231 fans in attendance in Brooklyn. And you have some of the top stars that have come out too. Carmelo Anthony was there. Jason Sudeikis, AZ Fudd was there, which was really the highlight of it all. Sabrina Ionescu, Issa Rae, Sue Bird, and the list goes on of the amount of people that had come out to support, including some league investors, and Alex Morgan was there. There was literally just a star-studded group of celebrities, athletes, whatever the case may be. But the other interesting layer to this is they had considered also having the finals in Brooklyn, but Breanna Stewart said that, as much as they would have wanted to keep it there and, maybe have another record sellout crowd, it's important to have these championships in Miami where they built all this, where they've created this fan base for Unrivaled, where maybe multiple people are coming back to watch all these games. Obviously a smaller venue, but I just think that shows the loyalty that these players have to the fans and wanting to give back and appreciate them for coming and supporting them.
100%. You put it perfectly. They built it from the ground up in Miami. The entire season was there last year. I thought having the semifinals in Brooklyn, taking it to another location, was a tremendous idea because of the success of Philadelphia. I think this is something that Unrivaled has been looking at and hopefully will do more, so we do get more tour stops out of them. Maybe playoffs, maybe not. But to have it start and end in Miami would be poetic. It's like you said, the people that really helped build it from the ground up, they can all be there, and all the fans that have season tickets can get a chance to watch it as well. So I definitely think that you want to have the final in Miami.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been cool that they're having this final in Miami and Philly, whatever. But I just want to know when they're coming to Chicago. That's the biggest question mark for me, because I will be the first person in line. Sophia, I've been jealous of you being from Miami, being able to go home and see. You went to two different Unrivaled games. So anyway, jealous of you. But also in terms of kind of this revenue, which is going to tie in later to our CBA, the Unrivaled president, Alex Basil, who is also Nafisa Collier's husband.
More commonly known, yeah.
More commonly known as Nafisa Collier's husband, said the league had brought in $1 million in gate revenue for the semifinals alone. Gate revenue is the total money generated just from ticket sales, not even counting, I'm sure, the amount of merch that people were buying while they were there. So this will tie in later to when we're having our CBA conversations, when Nafisa Collier says she knows how to run a business, and literally her business is run by her own family and trusted individuals like Breanna Stewart. She knows exactly what she is talking about. But stick with us, because we have to go over some of the number one seeds heading to the NCAA tournament. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So If you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, and more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Bracketology, because we are excited for March Madness coming up soon. We first have to get through all these conference tournaments that are coming up literally tomorrow. First, all of those are coming up too. But bracketology, Texas has joined UConn, UCLA, and South Carolina as the number 1 seeds in the bracket in the latest projections, which was announced this past Sunday, with Iowa and Oklahoma making big jumps since the first reveal from the top 16 seeds. And then the Hawkeyes are now projected to sit as a number 6 seed and from a number 11 seed, and Oklahoma now 12. So yes, those were some of the most significant jumps, but let's take a look first at those number 1 seeds. You have a Texas, you have UConn, UCLA, South Carolina, kind of representing a good portion of stuff. We don't see, obviously, a Big 12 team being a number 1 seed or an ACC team. Not that we anticipated that, but 2 SEC schools, Texas and South Carolina, not having to battle up against each other to start. But what is your immediate reaction to Texas, UConn, UCLA, and South Carolina as the number 1 seeds?
They're all extremely valid and they make sense. Looking at UConn, they're the undisputed number 1 best team in the country. I think they're the top number 1 seed. Then going down a step into UCLA, that's another team that has been extremely solid. Only 1 loss the whole season to Texas. They have been dominating the Big Ten, all of league play. Then you go into South Carolina, who's another team I think has created some separation from the rest of the SEC. They only have 2 losses, 1 to Texas in a non-conference neutral site game, technically, and then another to Oklahoma that was away. And then 4th, you have Texas, who got some really quality wins. They were looking like a very strong number 2 seed the majority of the season up until you get to the gauntlet that is the Southeastern Conference. They picked up some losses there. And so that's why they dropped a bit, but I still think there is a minor gap between them and the number 5 team, LSU. Those 1, 2, 3, 4 schools are also exactly 1, 2, 3, 4 in the net rankings, which are being taken into consideration a lot more in these bracketologies. So quite frankly, no surprises to me there.
When we're looking at this as well in terms of region, UConn is going to be starting off in Storrs, Connecticut. Obviously, they are all the number 1 seeds. Who is potentially behind them here is FDU, Howard, Illinois, and Syracuse, in terms of all those teams that would be playing within that region. Region 2, which is in Sacramento, Sacramento, UCLA is in there, that it's CA Baptist, Oklahoma State, and Virginia Tech are all within that area. Region 4, also within Sacramento, which would go to Sacramento, starts off in Austin with Texas, High Point, USC, Villanova, all in there. And then Region 3, starting off with South Carolina, you have Alabama A&M in there, Chattanooga, Oregon, and Iowa State. I think this is maybe one of the most interesting ones. I think more just the inclusion of Iowa State in there, as looking at kind of teams that maybe need to really perform in these conference tournaments to have a significant shot at being in a solid placement in the tournament.
100%. They were floating around the top 10 for the majority of their season up until they got into conference play, then went on a pretty debilitating losing streak and debilitating towards their resume. that definitely did not help. They picked it up once they got some of their available players back. However, just like you said, they'll definitely need to make some noise in the Big 12 tournament in order to get a higher seeding. Right now, they're at a number 9 seed, so I do think they will be an at-large bid. However, you want to get that as high up as possible because right now they have them in the same pool as South Carolina, which is not necessarily a team that you want to go up against early.
Looking kind of at a breakdown too of the conferences that will have the number of teams according, obviously right now in the bracket. Big Ten actually leads the way with 12, SEC right behind them with 11, ACC 9 teams, Big 12 7 teams, and the Big East 2 teams, as well as 2 from the Ivy League. Is the Big Ten starting to overshadow the SEC in a way? Maybe overshadow is a strong word for it, but they have put themselves in very good contention to be just as competitive as the SEC and have just as many ranked schools and teams, not only being in the top 25 polls, basically in the entire season long, but also having some of the most teams that can make the NCAA tournament.
I think where the Big Ten gets its advantage is because it's not just 10 teams anymore. It has well expanded past that. And so they actually have more teams in the conference than the SEC. I would argue that the top end talent, you maybe take the top 5 schools from the SEC, are better than the top 5 schools from the Big Ten. But maybe the top 10 schools in the Big Ten could outperform the top 10 schools in the SEC. So we've seen multiple times also within the Big Ten conference that these teams will go up against some of these ranked opponents and end up being successful. We've seen it in the SEC, but not as frequently. So I think that's where you give that maybe a little bit of parity edge towards the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit easier when you have 18 schools in it. Sometimes you forget just how expansive the Big Ten has really gotten when we're thinking of covering these Midwest schools. Now you have teams traveling all the way to the West Coast. But I absolutely agree with you when you're looking at some of the top talent within the SEC. It could be hard to compare even with the Big Ten. You just know how prominent those teams are within the SEC. Is there a team that maybe, in your opinion, can be kind of a sleeper team that maybe could have a little bit more success and maybe fight their way through the tournament more than we think?
That's a good one. I'm trying to think of different conferences and like what team I could see pulling a major upset and winning their conference. And right now, my mind is going towards Michigan. They are a very young team. So I think some of the inexperience is one of the cons that they have when you're going into postseason play. But their highs can compete with any team in the NCAA. And so that's where I think I give them a little bit of a push and who I could see making a little bit of a run and boosting some of their resume.
I think one of the Ivy Leagues is going to come in here and maybe surprise people. I think it would be a Princeton to do that. They've had some good competition. I mean, they lost to some Big Ten teams, but they were able to keep all of these games very close. I think that they could surprise a team or two. They've been within the top 25, like literally at 25 for a majority of the season. So I think they can maybe come in, sneak a couple of wins, a win, maybe 2 against some of these bigger teams and not without anybody really anticipating it. So I think the Ivy Leagues and the smart kids are up going into the NCAA tournament. But stay with us because coming up after this, is the CBA turning a corner? We think so.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night let me go back for a second. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. March is a time to celebrate women, especially around International Women's Day. and to recognize just how much they carry. And you know what? Let's take it a step further. Every day, I think we should celebrate women, and every day should be International Women's Day. But at work, in relationships, in families, and in all the unseen roles they step into every day. It's easy to celebrate that strength, but it's just as important to make space for their emotional well-being. And honestly, that goes for all of us. Women, we obviously carry a different kind of burden that sometimes you really do need to go to an expert to decompress and unpack all of that and just have a listening ear. Or you can even think about your mother or sister. You really don't know what they have to go through in everyday lives. And again, sometimes it is very helpful to just go and speak to someone, not do this nonsense I've been seeing where people are trying to get therapy through AI. Let's not do that. Let's go to a real professional in person. But therapy can help with all of that, create balance, set healthy boundaries, and support your overall well-being. And with over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served worldwide, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, and it works. Your emotional well-being matters. Find support and feel lighter in therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. That's betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. Now it's time for FanDuel. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want. Rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your read. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out, especially with March now started. There are so many games coming up, so much potential that you could play around with. And FanDuel Sportsbook currently has some WNBA championship odds. So, of course, we have to look at that. Right now, Las Vegas Aces are favored as a plus 320. Right under them is the Indiana Fever at plus 350. So go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Your game. Head to FanDuel.com.
Is the CBA turning a corner? We could only hope so. So as I mentioned earlier, the league gave a new deadline of March 10th. So it doesn't interfere with the season schedule and wouldn't be delaying anything else. There's still been some slight bumps in the road here, but there's been a mix of opinions at times because I think there's always a question mark of, or it's always brought up that things are kind of treaded in the right direction, but there are still just small things that have not been figured out. Sophia, what is still, I guess, some of the main priorities that we're looking for as we're approaching the 10th?
The league made the most recent proposal on Sunday. They made a slight increase to the salary cap, but a little minimal compared to what the union is asking for. The league did not move in its revenue sharing proposal. They want 70%, or they're willing to give the players 70% of net revenue. Net revenue is after deducting expenses, and the players, they're asking for 26% of gross revenue. Gross revenue is before deducting expenses. So if you convert that 26% of gross that the players using is proposing, it equates to about 15% of gross that the league is presenting. So still a pretty large gap that the players aren't willing to drop and that the league isn't willing to rise. The league also did not move on its housing proposal that has really risen as a key issue in this CBA. Their most recent proposal says that in the first year, all players will be provided team housing. In the second year, team will provide housing to only developmental players, rookies, and those signed to league minimum. And in the third year, only developmental players would be provided housing. This is a stance that the players have felt pretty strongly about, especially with the inconsistency that some people bounce around teams. They want to have that housing as a safety net, especially, again, for the players that maybe aren't on some of these super maxes. And the last thing that the league included in this recent proposal is they have conditions that would allow younger players to earn max salaries faster. This is an interesting addition, basically saying that if someone's on a rookie contract and they get first or second team all WNBA, they're eligible for a max in their fourth year, similar to a Caitlin Clark situation last year. And if they have a rookie contract and an MVP, they're eligible for the Supermax in their fourth year, a la an A'ja Wilson. So trying to give some of these younger players that opportunity to still feel like they're being rewarded for that effort.
I think that's a really big part of it too, because when you're looking at some of the players that have really helped, keyword here, helped propel women's basketball to the platform that it is at, it doesn't make a lot of sense when they're making the rookie minimum contract. Hence maybe a Caitlin Clark getting drafted and, you know, all of her other earnings are obviously what's paying the bills, whatever the case may be, but she's not really getting paid from the league themselves. I could say the same for an Angel Reese, as you mentioned, an A'ja Wilson. That makes a lot of sense. I think the housing is a tricky part of it too, because you want to make sure that all of the players are protected in a situation like this. And I do think this one sounds more reasonable instead of when there was kind of those conversations of getting rid of it as a whole and just being like, okay, everyone figure it out. It's like, no. Let's actually make sure there's housing for all of these players. So that kind of changes based on year. First year, all players team provided housing in the labor deals first year in 2027. And the second year, team provided housing would be available to only the developmental players, rookies, those signed to league minimums. Third year, only developmental players would be provided housing, and the league included conditions that would allow younger players to earn those salaries faster. So kind of helps get them out of that situation of having to provide housing maybe longer than wanted for rookies, especially. But in terms of some comments, Kelsey Plum said, I want to play and players want to play. We're going to continue to negotiate and do everything we can get done in a timely fashion. Obviously, a strike would be the worst thing for both sides. So it does seem like the players are getting more confident in what the WNBA is presenting to them, what the league is offering. But I think it's just still talking things over and not just saying like, oh, okay, thanks, guys. So yes, we're good to go.
They are still taking the fact that the W and the league is looking at a revenue share system as a win, as opposed to, again, that fixed rate, whereas the league grows, their rate stayed the same. So trying to take that as a win, but not fully compromise.
Absolutely. Well, that'll do it for us on Locked On Women's Basketball today. We will continue to keep you updated on all things women's basketball. Stay with us because the conference tournaments are coming.